Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the 14th of November 2017. Before we start, we're going to have our opening word. Dear colleagues, may we have the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So good evening to all. We're going to start with number 3. We have quorum. The call to order, confirmation of quorum. Yes. So, for anyone who might need the interpretation system, there are headsets at the back of the room.
There are some translation devices that are available at the back of the room.
Declaration of conflicts of interest. In my case, I have a conflict of interest at item. No, it's on the agenda, but I anticipate, knowing that we have a visitor who wants to speak on a file. So I'll do what I have to do at the time, and I will probably leave the room. Nobody else has a conflict of interest? No? Okay, we're okay. So now we go to the adoption of the agenda, moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Cormier. On the question? No questions? So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The agenda is accepted as presented. Item 7, presentations, inquiries, petitions. We're going to be starting, first of all, at 7.1. We're going to start with a presentation, and we will be welcoming Mr. Tom Crislow, who's our new superintendent for Kodiak Regional RCMP. So welcome among us, and I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the members of council. No, it's already turned on. And then afterwards, if anybody has any questions or requests, then it will be with pleasure that we will talk to you. Thank you very much. So, I imagine that a number of you have read the newspaper about 4 weeks ago. I got here last week from Bathurst. I was the commander for the Northwest for 1 year. I have 29 years service in the force, so I have quite a lot of experience. I worked here in Kodiak between 2009 and 2010 as an inspector. So I'm familiar with the Riverview, Moncton, Dieppe municipality. My wife lives here in Moncton, so I feel like a Moncton citizen. So I got here last week. You can imagine that I'm very busy. As far as tonight, I don't know how things work here. I don't have very much to report, except that last week there were 68 service calls for the city of Dieppe. That represents 12% of the total calls. So other than that, then I don't see anything. Unless you have questions, we're going to turn the mics on, and if anybody has any question tonight for the superintendent, Richlow. Nobody? No lights are turned on? So that's it. Welcome. And you are very welcome to stay here if you want. But if you do have more important things to do, we understand that too. No, I'll be staying here. Thank you. So we continue with presentations. This is the asset management policy presentation from Madame Dallaire. So Mr. Thériault is going to give us some background. No, I'm sorry, it's Mr. Landry. Mr. Thériault is sitting with Madame Dallaire. That's why I'm confused. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors. Just a little preamble as to why we're here tonight. 1st of January 2012, that's when the new accounting norms from the public sector were in effect. In other words, the real estate capital 3150. So following that, we hired Harvey Anderson to give us an exhaustive inventory of all the assets of the municipality of Dieppe. The report that was given by Harvey Anderson was the amount of money to be invested in the next 100 years to basically maintain our present-day actives, and also to talk about the infrastructure deficit. This report gave us the opportunity to realize the importance of budgetary impact of replacement of infrastructure. Since that time, we've created different asset replacement programs. We've increased the amounts that we put in those programs, plus the money that we put into capitalization rather than borrowing for the purchase and the maintenance of assets. Over the last years, the province started to send us correspondence to tell us that there were changes that are going to come about. They notified the municipalities that we'd had to be compliant with new requirements in asset management if we want to continue to receive the rebate on tax. Now we receive that for asset replacements. It's a little vague, so we need more criteria in order to get that money. In 2015, the FCM came up with a program in asset manager leadership program. There were 11 municipalities. Afterwards, there was a francophone cohort that was created. It represented 5 municipalities, 3 from Quebec, and then Dieppe and Saint-Quentin from New-Brunswick. And we had an agreement, and we hired KPMG consultants to have establish an asset management leadership program. And so now we have Madame Dallaire from KPMG who followed that whole process. Thank you and good evening to council. Thank you. Good evening, councillors. There's a little bit of concerning the asset management and the requirements of the province. It's important to note that something that Monsieur Landry mentioned is that we talked about the asset management plan that was created in 2012. It was the first step in the this type of thing, but it's not the last one. It's something that you're doing, and other cities, municipalities in the province are doing the same. Jesus Christ. We see the requirements of the province, so we need the. So this thing to find out what the assets are and the monetary value of them. So this is where there's an awareness taking of the assets here in New Brunswick, in BC, elsewhere in the country. But the management of assets it does not stop that. It's a process that involves different actors in the municipality to have an integral asset management. What you see here is what the province requires from each province in the municipality by July 2018. And it will only be phase 1 on the agreement on the federal gas tax fund. There will be other things that will be added to these requirements. So what does the province want to do with this? It's looking to this is what we figure, but this is what the federal and the FCM is trying to do, is make sure that the municipalities go beyond the asset management. So it's a guideline, it's something, it doesn't necessarily lead to action. We want municipalities to adopt ways of doing that are more holistic, to have an integral management. We see here that the province included elements of governance and of financial planning. So we see that we're creating habits with the governance. There's roles and responsibilities, the asset management, financial planning, investments of the municipality. That's basically the broad lines. What Monsieur Landry mentioned earlier was the inventory of the assets, and your participation in the program helped us find tools to go beyond the plan and to basically, you're part of a Francophone cohort of 5 Francophone cities, so it's a question of best practices. But what is leadership? It's changed the organization and changed ways of doing things. It's not easy. It takes time. We've seen other cases. It could take years. It's not results that we see overnight. Analysis or planning or budgets or investment plans. We try to find more holistic ways where we take into consideration the life cycles. So long term, we see this, but it's not necessarily seen as something tangible in the community, but it's important. And this is what the federal, the province, and the FCM require of municipalities in the country. So how are we doing this? In the asset management plan with the city of Dieppe, we worked on the foundation of this, which is basically to create the governance tools. So we took stock of practices. We put them with the best practices in infrastructure and asset management. We started to establish kind of a roadmap. So these foundational things, active asset management is important. It needs engagement from municipal council to follow the best practices. And it's something that the infrastructure needs. And it's a question to correct the past errors that led to infrastructure deficits. So we have to get ready for the future. So we reviewed the asset management plan, and we established the roadmap, like I mentioned. I think it's important for you to see who are the other members of this cohort on the Francophone and on the Anglophone side, because there's good collaboration with the FCM to see what's been done in the Anglophone side here with the Francophone cohort. Best practices were established, like leaders like Ottawa and Edmonton, and with the FCM they want to integrate sustainable development. This is where it's going to be integrated in things to do, thinking of future generations, the natural environment, etc. So the question is, why is it important now? I said we have to go beyond the asset management plan, because asset management plan is the basis of it. 5 years ago, even before that, the idea was that it was a management model that was optimal, good for investments, to see what but ideas have changed, and now it's considered as a tool to obtain strategic objectives of the municipality. The policy of asset management, the strategy, all these governance tools are creating basically an alignment between the corporate and the reality on ground, and the municipality is on the state of the assets and services to citizens by its infrastructure. It's not that, I think that changes over the last years was basically what on land. It's aging infrastructure means new risks, and that threaten services, climate change, all things change basically. And we have to basically make other levels of the municipality aware of this. This shows the dynamic from top to bottom. Leadership, governance determine the orientation of the city in its management. That will basically influence how the portfolio of assets is managed across the municipality. Policies and strategies, what they do, they unify ways of doing things in different sectors of the municipality. In the past, there was not that much integral management communication between the departments. I'm not saying it's the case of Dieppe. I think in places in Dieppe, there's a lot of communication, but it would be a more structured way of doing things so that the portfolio be managed in a more coherent way, and there would be more consistent management, which would have better maintenance, and it would be a question of informing all the other levels of decision making in the municipality. So it goes from top to bottom and from bottom to top. What the policy of the Asset Manager Leadership Program has done is that it's worked on defining the principles. So in July 2018, there'll be something to be submitted. So there's work to be done on certain things, and I want to cover. But you are well positioned to meet those requirements. But I want to come back to what the province is looking to do. So basically, what are we talking about? Ways of doing things. And so this has been discussed in the municipality. And we looked at what other municipalities are doing concerning management practices. I talked about systematic approaches. That's an important objective. I think the idea here is things that are brought from the municipality to the budget system gives the opportunity to compare all these different things. We try to make sure that everything that is being considered was analyzed, like the life cycle, risk management, etc. It's important to talk about the consequences of non-compliance with these tools that we've created in Dieppe. The first, because it concerns the asset management. If there hasn't been good planning of the investment, it will not capitalize on different things. There could be conflicts in priorities of the divisions. There could be poor coordination, inefficiency in the services. And we see that where asset management has evolved, there could be capitalization projects that could be incompatible with the needs of the municipality. So in 2012, we can say that there was a better discussion between engineering and accounting. They agreed on a long-term planning, and the asset management is not limited to existing activities, but planning of new assets. So we see that in planning has to be involved in asset management. An important point is not following these policies or the procedures could compromise your position on the funding that you will receive. This is phase one. It'll get more complicated. There will be some measures, some results that are going to be necessary. But you were well positioned concerning the plan for adaptation to climate change. That's very good, because that is a very present-day issue that represent financial risks and to the municipal life in Dieppe. So we have to create links between the analysis that was done and the risk assessment and make an update of this. We have to review financial planning, priorities, see if there are climate changes, things that have to be involved to meet the requirements of the province. And also on the costs, the analysis of costs in 2012 were basically on capital. It's a majority of the budget, but where the risk is managed on a daily basis, it's on working. Are there real costs or are there gaps? When I talked about these analysis, I mentioned that the municipalities across the country are taking the time necessary to adapt the measures of asset management. It could take from 3 to 5 years for some municipalities. So I warn you that it's a long-term progress. The next steps will be to create asset management plans in depth. It's the methodology that was that is basically the best for you concerning the way that you've taken it up to now from 2012. Other methods could be on one issue, to do it globally across the whole municipality, but if you get quick wins with certain assets, it could be, and things will basically, you'll be able to invest, and the municipality will be able to do on your own. You won't need consultants for these analyses. What we recommend in the strategy, it's not creating a plan so that it's going to be set aside, but it's a plan that is going to be used, that is going to be living, that's going to be long-term for the municipalities, linked to certain sectors. It's going to be basically a live plan. This is what we're trying to accomplish with the engagement of the asset management described in the policy. What the strategy is saying is how we're going to accomplish things concerning this engagement. Thank you. Questions from members of council? I guess things were well explained. As a matter of fact, since 2012, there have been quite a few discussions at the municipal council level, but I think it's important to realize that there's still a long way to go. And I think that it says a lot when we see that the number of the policy of asset management finances 0-1. That means that we've got quite a long way to go yet, but I mean, we've got to start somewhere, and this is a start. Have these comments brought up any other questions from members of council? No? So thank you very much for your presentation, and knowing Steve as we know him, we know that this is going to be a hard nut to crack. Thank you very much. Item number 8, questions by members of the public. Good evening.
And
I have to leave this on. Leave this on? Yeah. Okay. My name is Michael McBurney, and I'm a resident of Dieppe.
and this is the point where I have to leave.
Thanks for
So,
coming.
Monsieur-
I appreciate it.
Having already declared a conflict of interest in the matter, Monsieur le maire adjoint, Monsieur Godet.
Deputy Mayor, Monsieur Godet.
Leave them on. Okay.
You may go ahead, Mr. McBurney.
I'm actually excited this evening to hear that Dieppe is addressing acid rain, climate change, and the environment. As Councillor Gaudette actually mentioned at the end of last 2 weeks ago, the meeting, I'd also like to commend all the city workers on the beautification of Dieppe, the paving, etc., which brings me to my point of discussion. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael McBurney. I would like to discuss this evening the bylaw S12 respecting outside fires and also the bylaw Z2, dangerous and unsightly premises. I do live on Bayview Court, just off Dover Road. Who here can verify that Bayview Court is indeed within the city limits of Dieppe? Roger LeBlanc, thank you. Again, thank you to council, and I wish to also thank the mayor for helping and assisting me in this situation that I'm involved in. I have been working with the city in regards to a property on my street for the past 3 years. Not only does the property pose a dangerous fire threat to the homes and surrounding areas in the in our area, affecting our safety, property value, and most importantly, the resale value. Just to give you a little bit of history, in 2014, a fire broke out on the premises, on the property that we're mentioning, which posed a dangerous threat due to an unattended garbage barrel, which in the bylaw S12 is not described as a device to burn. Today, in 2017, the burning still continues. On October 25th, 2017, at approximately 3:49, I discovered a barrel on the property that had begun smoldering due to a high wind that picked up. I took a video of the...
Excuse me, Mr. McBurney, I'm going to have to intervene in the sense that you are making a presentation, and the procedures for council with respect to presentation is that there has to be a notice to presentations.
Okay.
Presently, we've asked for questions, if you have any particular questions regarding the thing, but
Okay, perfect.
I can't allow you to get into a presentation unless you notify us ahead of time, and then you can come and make your presentation if that's suitable to you.
Okay, well,
Because if we do it otherwise, then we're going to be getting into a precedent where we'll be getting presentations every night.
No, I respect that. Yeah,
Okay.
I actually did make a request to be put onto the agenda, and unfortunately, nobody actually got back to me with that information as to how I was supposed to go about.
Okay, I'm
Getting
sorry
on the
about
agenda.
that. Somebody should have gotten back to you on that for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the bylaw S12, Section 10. Mr. Simard, can you tell me what month and date would the cutoff be in which you can burn in the city of Dieppe?
No, excuse me.
If you allow me, I will pass the microphone to Conrad Landry.
Okay, perfect.
He's the expert for this bylaw.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was again instructed that you were going to be the representative tonight for bylaw enforcement. So I apologize. Conrad, perhaps you can answer that question for me.
So, merci, Monsieur le maire adjoint. So,
Thank you. So the bylaw says that after October 31st, we cannot burn any longer.
And again, Mr. Simard, this may be a question for you. I'm not quite sure. You may want to refer it back to Conrad. Did the city of Dieppe authorize an exemption to Section 4 subsection 10 of the bylaw S12, which would allow the property owner to continue burning beyond the normal date limit of October 31st?
I don't know by heart the whole bylaw. Just give me, can I have 1 minute to just get it?
I actually have a copy of it. I'd be more than happy to
course,
read
yes.
that for you. Okay. So basically, my question was there an exemption granted to the property owner at Bayview
No,
Court?
clearly not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarification. And at this point in time, do we know that there was a permit issued for April 2017 to burn?
Sorry?
Can you indicate if there was a permit that had been originally issued in April?
No, we didn't.
There was no
issue any
permit?
no.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And do we know if the city of Dieppe authorized an exemption to Section 4, Bylaw S12, which limits the number of devices one property can have? This particular property actually has 3 devices in which it's being burnt. So do we know if there was an exemption?
No, I don't.
Well, I'll have to intervene, Mr. McBurney. I think we're getting into an area which we are now undertaking court legal processes.
Okay,
So it's very difficult for us to start answering questions related to that particular item.
I appreciate it. I'm just,
So if you wish to ask questions in general, that's fine. We're open to that. But when you start focusing in on a particular property, on a particular residential, we can't go any farther because we are now into court proceedings or in legal proceedings.
no, I understand that. Yeah, thank you. And again, at this time, I'll just take a quick opportunity to thank everyone here tonight for your help in my situation. I do look forward to a resolution with this, and I will continue to exercise my right as a citizen of Dieppe, as a taxpayer of Dieppe, to find some resolution to this. So again, thank you, Conrad Landry, for your quick response. Thank you, Council. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McBurney. I just want you to know before you go to your chair that really we're aware of what the situation is. We're working on the matter with city staff. All councilor members are aware of what's happening. We're working with our partners, including the fire department and the RCMP. We have a procedure in place, and we are following it as we normally would as a municipal government. And hopefully we can arrive at some mutual and agreeable conclusion. But if not, we'll have to pursue this activity or this initiative further. So thank you for your intervention.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it. Again, I would just like to ask that the lines of communication be kept open with me. As you've just experienced, I wasn't aware that I had to fill out any documentation to have my situation brought to council. So that's just one small example of what I've been dealing with, just the lack of communication. So, I'm not the bad guy here.
Thank you very much for your...
Thank you. Any questions? Is there any questions for me? No questions?
Not at this time, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, what?
I just want to say to Mr. McBurney, I would like to meet you after the meeting, if you want to. Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
OK, good. Somebody... Est-ce quelqu'un qui peut demander au maire de...
Could somebody ask the mayor to come back in? Je voulais tout simplement clarifier que lorsque la demande a été faite par M. McBurn, il y avait des...
Question at question period, so I didn't understand that it was a presentation, so sorry for the mix-up of understanding your request, so just wanted to clarify that.
So item number 9, unless there are other questions by members of the public. It seems not. So item number 9, adoption of minutes, moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Arsenault, that we adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 23rd of October. Are there any questions? No questions. All those in favor of the adoption of the regular council meeting of October 23rd, signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. Item 10, motions, memorandums, nominations. 10.1, administration, declaration of vacancy at municipal council. Mr. Melançon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to all. As it was indicated in the media, Mr. Jordan Nolan has decided to quit the council for a reason of work. 23rd of October, the procedure in place, we have to declare a vacant position by resolution, and thereafter there have to be a resolution from council to Elections New-Brunswick to identify, determine that we have a vacant position for a by-election in spring. There is an available position, so it will be a by-election. So this is to be in compliance with the law. For the resolution, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council declare a vacancy for the position of councillor at large in the city of Dieppe and direct the municipal clerk to send a certified true copy of this resolution to the Chief Electoral Officer. So moved. Moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Alain. On the question. No questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.2, culture, leisure, and community life. Here we received a request by Merlaw Developments, Alliance for Public Purposes. Portion of lands for public purposes is owned by the city of Dieppe, and the steps is to request the Planning Advisory Committee under paragraph, so it's for recommendations to council, so it's to request the views of the PAC. Reading of the resolution, Councillor Arsenault. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council proceed with the legislative exercise by requesting the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee under paragraph 57(3)(b) of the Community Planning Act for the exchange of portions of land for public purposes owned by the city of Dieppe and identified under PIDs 705-33146 and 703-74707 against a portion of land owned by Merlot Developments Limited identified under PID 006-77765. So moved, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Arsenault, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question, Monsieur Leblanc. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution stipulates, it's mentioned by the municipal director that it's for identical territory. I think that they gave us a little more, as a matter of fact, than what we are giving them. So we are kind of winning a little bit here. So afterwards, public purposes land. Is he going to need a surplus to put his row houses? We will have to see the parcel. Mr. Nadeau or Frenette, maybe I can answer for Mr. Nadeau, but Mr. Nadeau, you can confirm that the area is the same. It's just an exchange of equal area portions. Is there a problem on the zoning side? Well, when we have a development, the plan is registered in planning. So the thing is that if there's a change in the plan, once it's been registered, there has to be another request at the Planning Advisory Committee if it's possible to have an exchange of portions of land, because it's land for public purposes. If it had been land for something other, it wouldn't have come before council, but it's land for public purposes, then we have to do it under paragraph 57. Does that answer your question? Partially because the land in question has already been rezoned for the row houses, so we don't have to go through another land of public purposes above and beyond the exchange. No, the way we're doing it, because zoning as such of the land, we knew it was for a park, so it's zoned to be able to build row houses. Does that answer your question? That's not the answer you were waiting for? Well, I'm just wondering, usually when we develop a land, there land for public purposes that goes with the development. So is this land for public purposes has already been given by the developer? Yes, like I said, my first answer was that yes, in fact, because the plan was registered with the, when there was development, they had to give the land for public purposes. It was registered. Now he's asking to see if there was a possibility of exchange of portions of land, because the developer wanted to build on that piece of land, but obviously he has to give us land for public purposes elsewhere on the piece of land. So he's suggesting to council that we can exchange portions of land for a future park, that it be relocated a little farther for land that would be used for a playground. Or that leads to me to ask a question. So this land, does it meet the distance requirements? Yes, exactly. Like, you know, Mr. Mayor, we have a playground that's the end of Rue d'Olbeau towards Pascal Street. So it's within the 800 meters there. The idea is maybe, again, to move that piece of land to make it a little more central in this subdivision in the future. So if I understand properly, it means that we may have another resolution later on to move the playground, possibly. Yes. Thank you for your answers. So did my question raise questions from other members of council? If not, you've heard the resolution. So all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Resolution is carried as presented. 10.3.1, Fire Prevention Officer. So, with the reading of it in its entirety, Article S2, we're asking for a bylaw enforcement officer pursuant to Article 109 of the Municipalities Act. We recommend Marc Cormier, District Chief with the Dieppe Fire Department, and giving him all the powers to manage this bylaw, which will be adopted later on at the in this meeting. So it's to have everything set up with the idea of adopting the bylaw. So for the reading of the resolution, Mr. Cormier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That council appoint Marc Cormier, District Chief with the Dieppe Fire Department, as Fire Prevention Officer pursuant to Article 109(1) of the Municipalities Act, and as Bylaw Enforcement Officer pursuant to the Community Planning Act, the Municipalities Act, and the Police Act, and that he be authorized, designated, and appointed to act for and on council's behalf in order to properly enforce the municipal bylaws, and that the said appointment continue as long as the said person remains employed with the municipality, or that the appointment is limited or rescinded by council. So moved. Moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question? No question? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.3.2, Greater Moncton Pest Control Commission. No, I think I had a mosquito in the mouth. I wasn't able to pronounce it properly. For the reading of the resolution, Mr. Godet. That council appoint Councillor Roger Leblanc on the Board of Directors of the Greater Moncton Pest Control Commission for a term ending May 14th, 2018. So moved. Moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Brideau. On the question? No questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Resolution is carried as presented. Monsieur Leblanc, thank you and congratulations actually for your appointment. I asked Monsieur Godet to do it and he did it very well. 11.1 Bylaw S2 relating to fireworks and special effects pyrotechnics in the city of Dieppe. For the reading of the bylaw in its entirety, don't all raise your hands at a time. Monsieur Cormier, go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw relating to fireworks and special effects pyrotechnics in the city of Dieppe. Pursuant to the authority vested in it by the Municipalities Act, RSNB 1973, Chapter M22, the Fire Prevention Act, RSNB, Chapter F13, the Explosives Act, RSC, 1985, and Chapter E17, an Explosive Regulation, SOR 2013-211, the Dieppe City Council enacts the following definitions. No, just by paragraphs. 1. Definitions. 2. Sky lanterns. 3. Fireworks and special effect pyrotechnic articles. 4. Permit. 5. Fireworks and special effect pyrotechnics unfit to be sold, given, and set off, and non-exploded or unfired fireworks and special effects pyrotechnics. 6. Enforcement. 7. Offenses. 8. Repeal. So moved. In its reading in its entirety. Moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Arsenault. On the question? No questions? All those in favor of S2 as presented in its entirety, signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. So bylaw S2 is accepted as presented. Now, for third and final reading by title only. Thank you, Mr. Cormier. A bylaw relating to the fireworks and special effects pyrotechnics in the city of Dieppe. So moved in its third reading by title only. Moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Arsenault. On the question. No questions? All those in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. So, bylaw S2 is accepted in its third reading. Item 12, notices of motion. No notices of motion, so we go to 13, inquiries and announcements by members of council. And I believe that we begin on my right with Councillor Godet. Monsieur Godet. I just want to mention something that I had the opportunity to see. First of all, last week I had the opportunity to be present at the Remembrance Day ceremonies at Moncton High School. I can say that they were done twice, and both were perfect. It was truly a very emotional event. The person who made the speech went to war, but in Asia, and it's someone, an immigrant, and it was very touching to hear his point of view and what it meant to him to be a Canadian among all this. So it was very emotional, very nice. Also, I had the opportunity to go to the event at the Moncton Coliseum where there were 2,000, 3,000 people. Once again, there were a lot of people, a lot of young people. It was very good. Just a reminder to people who like cinema, the movies, it's starting on Friday and it goes to the 24th of November. Probably 100 different types of film presentations. So I encourage people to participate in the FICFA, the Francophone Film Festival. It's been going on for quite a few years here in Dieppe, and we hope that, well, we want to continue to encourage it. Those who want to purchase tickets and have the program, they can go to the Cineplex in Dieppe. That's where we can buy the tickets to see these different films. And finally, just a final word on people who like exercising. The is open morning, night, evening. It's available. People are starting to use it. We encourage people to, the oval. We encourage people to put on their skates and go gliding. And I actually am going to try it. I hope I won't break my neck. So we encourage everybody to use the oval. It's open. Thank you. Yes. During my relaxation, my break time, I went to see outside, and in fact there were about a dozen people that were ice skating around it. So I encourage, if you want to see if it's busy or not, go on the website of Place 1604, and you can view directly by the municipal website if there is a lot of activity or not, and help you decide to go there. Now, Councillor Leblanc. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things. First of all, talking about mosquitoes. You're doing a good job because there aren't any mosquitoes. Yeah, well, right now things are okay. The Greater Moncton Pest Control Commission is looking for a citizen of the municipality of Dieppe to sit on the board of members. There's a vacant seat. So if it's something that, if you're stung by the interest, you go to the office of the CEO, municipal director. Secondly, starting next Monday, I would invite citizens of the city of Dieppe to join us here at Municipal Hall for the budgetary process that's going to be starting on Monday evening. If I know it starts at 5:30 in the afternoon here in Council Chambers. So I would invite people to follow the debates, the deliberations of the budgetary procedures. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for sure. Thursday night, if it's necessary. So, and every evening it will be starting at 5:30 in the afternoon. That's all for tonight. Thank you very much. Councillor Cormier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to the veterans and also to the peace officers who are working for our safety. And I would like to invite citizens to come and make their contribution on Friday to the community college for the Tree of Hope. And those who are getting up early, you can go get breakfast because Friday morning next week, the 24th. All right, so the invitation is there. It's Friday the 24th, the Tree of Hope. That's all. Now, Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would have invited to the same activities as my colleague did, so it's done. So that's it for me tonight. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything for tonight. Madame Arsenault. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. On the 27th of October, I went to Shediac at the Multifunctional Center for a forum on well-being. It was a partnership of breast cancer and feminine cancers. It was very interesting to see all these women there involved. And it was also interesting to see how the chair, President Claire Leblanc, is doing many things for this cause. It was the first time in New-Brunswick that there was something like this. So for those who are interested in obtaining more information on this, the president is Claire Leblanc. Her phone number is 506-351-1272. The other thing, on the 8th of November, I went to the Multicultural Association of Greater Moncton, which opened a new office in Richibouctou. The address is 25 Cartier Boulevard, so it's a new office for Magma. Another thing, you know, the holidays are coming, and there's drinking going on, so make sure that you are very prudent. We want to make sure that everybody stays healthy. I want to congratulate the municipal workers for the nice work that they've done on the Champlain East, Lakeburn, Dieppe Boulevard, the roundabout. It's great. Amiro Road, as Mr. Ted Godin mentioned at the last meeting, was like a takeoff area. And the Fox Creek, it's really beautiful. It's great to drive in all those different areas. It's really beautiful. I'm also happy to see that there's also a walking trail on Fox Creek Road. But I was wondering, Madame Angèle Spencer, the walking trail that leaves the Rotary Club, the field of the Rotary Club, does it cross the way where there are all the letter boxes in Amiro to go behind that house, or do we have to go on the sidewalk and cross? Will there be a pedestrian crossing eventually there, or is it going to be from the sidewalk? Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure I understood. I think the one who's responsible for the trails. No problem. Future plans are there, but it's a question of cost because it's marshland basically. So there's a lot of boardwalk, and so the cost was fairly high. So it was pushed back for a couple of years. So if I understand properly, if we have surplus money, it would be a good idea. It's a possibility. Certainly, yes, it's something that we've looked into already. Great, thank you very much. Possibility on the humongous list of asset management, too. Great, thank you. Monsieur Alain, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 or 3 announcements and a question afterwards for the municipal director. The budget sessions, as has been indicated, I feel that it's the most important exercise for all citizens, so I invite everybody to come here. Please, it's a great time to find out what the priorities are, and it's also a way to express oneself on the management of assets, but of the municipality. It gives us a long-term vision. And speaking of vision, today I was reading in l'Acadie Nouvelle, the Saturday, the 11th of November, the school district did something that's pretty innovative. They're asking the population for the names of the 2 schools that are going to be coming up. So the construction teams are working at 1600 Boulevard Dieppe, next to the fire hall. So there are going to be 2 schools, 3 to 5, and then from 6 to 8. And the district is suggesting for all those who are interested to give their suggestions for those 2 schools. So to have paper copies, you can find them here at the Dieppe Library, at the Secretariat of our schools here in our beautiful municipality, and on the internet site of Francophone South. So my friend Maurice Basque alluded to that a city is going to be recognized by its historical people. He's named a couple, and I hope that the people of Dieppe are going to take the time to please make sure that your choices are put in there. I talked to my children. Clarence J. Cormier worked an important part as the first Minister of Education. He was from Dieppe, the School of Liberté, to recognize our veterans. Monsieur Basque mentioned Arthur Leblanc, a violinist from Acadia, who was born in Saint-Anselme. Lumina Gauvin, a teacher in Dieppe. So these are things that are going to help recognize our municipality, and it's a great opportunity to put in your option. So go vote, please. So the Santa Claus Parade is the 25th of November, Saturday. More than 100,000 people who come to see this parade, so be there. And my last is a question. Mr. McBurney, tonight, raised quite a few points. I talk to him often, and I can say that I hope that Mr. Burney finds solutions. I can see what he's going through. I went to see things on Bayview Road, and for the city manager, Stéphane, the new law of the municipality. So we're going to have better data so that we could work on the items that were raised by Mr. McBurney, that we can work on them more quickly. The Municipalities Act. The short answer is yes. Technically, the new law on local governance is going to give us more power. So that means more tools, more responsibilities. So the answer is yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Monsieur Alain. I just want to talk about the name of the schools. Just want to add concerning the former mayor and also the first Acadian to be Minister of Education, Mr. Cormier, who was also a great influence on the community college here in Dieppe, and that basically he set off really the growth of the city of Dieppe in the 1980s, just to say it. And as you said yourself very well, please vote for one or make your own suggestions, because the vote is going to take place, I believe, in December, or the 24th of November. Ooh. So, that being said, I have nothing to add. Thank you very much to all. Have a good evening. Mr. Superintendent, welcome among us. And as you see, there are always things to be discussed. And as much as possible, we count on you so that the things that we discuss are as peaceful as possible. And once again, welcome or re-welcome among us. Good evening to all.